That was my favorite part, D.
Love it. You got it. All right, we're gearing up for the next 2 hours of multifamily. Just getting started. All right, so next up, we are diving into our multifamily broker panel. I think we have everyone on the line here. So again, if you are participating in the next panel, let's be sure to unmute yourself. You should be able to jump in here. Whitney, how's it going?
Hey, Dylan. Hey, guys.
Happy birthday, Whitney. Appreciate you making
Thank
time
you.
out on your birthday.
Yeah. Been on the whole time, all day, too.
Oh, man. Well, I really appreciate that. What better way to spend the day, right?
Exactly. Real estate.
Awesome. I see Scott. How's it going, Scott?
Doing well. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Dylan.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Excited to have you on here. Will, how you doing?
Howdy. Doing well. About yourself?
Doing real good. Doing real good. Do we have Adrian on the line?
Yeah, I saw Adrian.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, there he is.
Can you hear me okay?
How's it going, Adrian?
Oh, that's a fancy studio.
Yeah, it's nice.
That's awesome. Well, awesome. So want to kick it off here and just get us started. If everyone wants to just take a quick minute and go round robin and just let us know, who are you with? What group are you with? What type of deals are you focused on? And really who's your ideal client as far as, what kind of sellers are you looking for? What kind of buyers are you looking for?
Well, I guess I'll start. I'm Scott Spalding, president of the apartment group at Bull Realty. We're based here in Atlanta. We have 35 brokers. We're licensed in 9 southeastern states. In terms of, I focus on B and C apartments, usually 50 units or up, mainly all throughout Georgia and parts of Alabama. And then just an ideal buyer for me is just someone who's experienced, well-capitalized, or partnered with someone who's experienced and well-capitalized, and they execute.
Love it.
Whitney, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll go. Hey, guys. Well, first, before I start, Rashad, Dylan, Jen, putting on this, there's nothing more valuable than being around a bunch of educated people in the real estate space, and you guys putting together this entire event in a month is phenomenal. So thanks for having me on. And, anyone listening, definitely take some notes and reach out to people when this ends, because this is this is valuable. Okay. So anyway, my name is Whitney Ward. I'm the broker and owner of Intuitive Management Partners. We are a niche multifamily firm. We focus sales, operations and leasing, and asset management. Our main focus is in our business, and what drives our business is our third-party property management. An ideal buyer for us would be someone, with some experience, but you could be new, partnering with someone that is experienced, well-capitalized, like Scott said. But you could also be from out of state. We established ourselves, we're a brokerage, but we established ourselves as a management company as well, to provide additional value to investors beyond just finding deals. Ideally for us, we want to work through the entire transaction with you. Since we understand the operations side, we can really help you underwrite deals, determine the right property, identify, delinquencies, collections, the overall operations of a property, and then buy at the right price. Once bought at the right price, then we can execute your business plan, move you through that cycle. And then, the idea is to sell us at the highest value at the end of the deal. So yeah, that's essentially what we do. And yeah.
Excellent. Adrian, you want to go next?
Sure.
It's different when you're not on a panel sitting next to each other.
I know, it's weird.
All right. I'm Adrian Provost. I am with Level. We're actually an investment company. We have a sales and marketing arm where we specialize in multifamily hospitality assets. So again, we're actually buyers and sellers of our own assets. And then we also lend a hand to investors who need to dispose and sometimes acquire their own asset. I would say our ideal buyer is, I mean, we work with all kind of buyers, so there's no specific criteria. I like to see people who do have some sort of experience, or like Scott mentioned, somebody who collaborates with one who does if they don't. That's pretty the most significant thing, is making sure that they actually have the capital to participate in whatever offering we may have.
Excellent. And one thing you'll notice as a trend here, right? It's being well capitalized. The reason I asked who's your ideal buyer or who's your ideal client, right, is because it's good for investors to know this, right? What do brokers want to see in you, right? They want to see that you're capitalized. They want to see you have the money behind you. And you don't have to have all the experience, but certainly partnering with someone with the experience is going to help, right? I always say it all comes down to certainty of execution. That's how they're going to pick. Outside of price, that's how you're going to compete, is having certainty of execution. So definitely a great point that everyone brings up there. And Will's here as the loan broker for the panel. So Will, definitely, we have a lot of questions for you on this, but want to share with us, who you're with and who are you currently focused on best helping?
Yeah, sure. So, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm a little unique being a loan brokerage, so we really help people find the right type of financing for their deal. There's tons of different types of financing, whether it's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, bank, HUD, private, bridge. There's tons of different options. So we really specialize in building relationships with each type of lender, and then understanding what asset is best for that specific type of loan. And it's something I greatly enjoyed. I worked at a bank for a long time, and I now have transitioned with Rand Capital, which, Dylan actually was the one that brought me on here. So, very grateful for having come in contact with Dylan. And we specialize in multifamily mostly, so mobile home parks as well, and working on some construction deals as well. But, just excited to help people understand the financing process as best as we can.
Awesome. Well, for time's sake, I'm going to direct certain questions to certain individuals, but by all means, if someone else wants to chime in and bounce off these, feel free. I want to start off with you, Scott. Tell us what you enjoy about being on the sales brokerage side of things.
Well, I would honestly say it's the people. I meet some very interesting and diverse people from all backgrounds from around the world. And I learn things from them as well. It's like every group has a certain way that they analyze deals, and the same reasons why it's a great deal for, say, Group A, those exact same reasons, it's not a deal for Group B. So it's almost kind of like mixing and matching. When you find a right opportunity, you can kind of match it up to the right group. But it has to be the people and also just the variety. Every deal is different. The circumstances are different. So, there's a lot of change.
Mm-hmm. Now, this next question, I want to get a sense really from everyone on. In the last market cycle, it's been completely transformative for Atlanta specifically, right? It's been transformative for multifamily and for Atlanta. So you've been seeing really double, two things playing into each other. So you've seen so many changes going on, and you've been there, boots on the ground. I mean, no one knows better than sales brokers. Sales brokers talk to more owners than anyone else out there. They have probably the best pulse on the market, arguably sales brokers and property managers, right? But you're seeing these changes firsthand. So why don't you just give us a big picture summary of what are the biggest changes you've seen in the last decade taking place within Atlanta, and is there any particular submarkets that you want to bring to our attention?
I would say,
go ahead, Adrian.
I would say hands down the gentrification in Atlanta proper. You see it all over, west side of town, east side of town, now South Atlanta as well. I think that's probably, again, the most significant change and substantial change that I've seen since I've been dealing in multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's the same thing. I've been here in Atlanta for 8 years, and I've just seen development in the past 8 years just go crazy in markets that 8 years ago or prior, you wouldn't have bought in those markets. And then you see prices, even in the single family space, I know we're talking multifamily, but I've just seen prices continue to rise, and they will continue to rise. And, we're still an affordable market compared to a lot of other markets, but I mean, how long will that last? And, will that be Atlanta? It doesn't look like it if you look at the trends, but some of the outside markets I like because of that. So when you talk submarkets, I like, the Cobb market, certain parts of DeKalb. Clayton County actually had the highest rent growth over the last few years and the most investors in that space. So there's definitely some tertiary markets out there that if you can, find the right broker to work with and find a deal and get your deal flow up, you can really still take advantage of getting in on some opportunities and riding this cycle. So.
And just to add to that, I've been in Atlanta for 30 years. So I've seen a lot of changes, but some of the changes that I really have noticed is just the influx of employers. I think Atlanta's been one of the top job markets for the last, say, 5 or 10 years. You're seeing a lot of companies get headquartered here, like Mercedes-Benz. Atlanta's also now a technology hub, so you have those companies. And then also now we're the new Hollywood, so you have the new movie industry that's here. I think with all that employment, there's just tremendous amounts of development that that come into place. So it all starts with jobs that create the development.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I want to circle back to Adrian. You mentioned the topic of gentrification, and by all means, not to bring us into any kind of a political discussion, but it's something that's a real life issue that we're seeing, right? And I think I want to just hear from you as being boots in the ground. How do you see the people of Atlanta responding to the changes in rent levels? Is there a noticeable class divide, or is there noticeable tension that's building up due to all the influx of investment capital that's been taking place in the last 10 years? And do you think this will cause ongoing tensions?
Oh, absolutely. Especially with, that coupled with COVID and seeing some of the unfortunate events that are occurring right now. I literally almost didn't make it to this situation today because I had to go check on some of my properties downtown, all the way up through Midtown, and even some parts of Buckhead. And I live in Buckhead. So just seeing how frustrated people are, I think that we're definitely going to see some pent up tension for sure. But to speak specifically to the economics, I see a lot of people getting pushed out of Atlanta proper who can't afford any longer to stay in those particular locations. And they're moving to the South Side. They're moving to Clayton County, which is part of the reason why you're seeing that tremendous amount of rent growth, because they see the influx of population and demand going down to the South Side of town. And so those prices are obviously increasing due to that fact. So I think that it correlates in more than one way, but I would say the immediate impact that I see is a lot of people getting pushed down south and those rent rates are increasing.
Mm. Where do you see the? Go ahead. Did you have something else?
No, go ahead, Dylan.
I was just going to say, where do you see the path of progress being? So you're saying it sounds like you're seeing rent growth taking place down south. You think that's going to continue to further develop right now? What do you say the path of progress is?
100%. That whole Aerotropolis area, I think that's one of those areas that I'm personally putting a lot of my own investment capital in because I believe in it tremendously. So yeah, for to that fact, I would say you would see Forest Park, you'll see Riverdale, going down towards Henry County, looking towards McDonough. But yeah, I definitely think that South Corridor, just adjacent the airport and the Aerotropolis, I think you're going to see a tremendous amount of growth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adrian. And then you look at Atlanta, it's like it's a circle. So everybody that was initially inside that circle is now being pushed outside. OTP is what we call it here, but you're being pushed out. So any market, even west, if you went to Douglasville, Carrollton, I've seen some properties out there that have traded and done well because rent is not, super expensive like you get in Buckhead. Or even if you push out east and went Stone Mountain, Decatur areas. I've even had people start going in towards the Athens area, Savannah. So anywhere that is, I don't want to discourage money to Atlanta because there's definitely still opportunities. But I think the previous panel with like Alvin and those kind of affordable strategies are going to be important in Atlanta just as much as the gentrification that's happening in Midtown, Buckhead, to balance out that. The one side that's angry and the one side that's just, has the ability, has the funds to be able to afford to live in those spaces. And that's just what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems that that's go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, it seems that that's the case, right? And it seems that, you know, all ships rise with the tide, right? And the city as a whole is going to continue to redevelop. But one of the questions that I think a lot of investors have with Atlanta is there's certain areas that were, you know, historically, we'll say rough areas, and historically areas that, you know, they still view as opportunistic to place capital in. When do you see people starting to make the decision? When do you see people starting to gain confidence around the certain areas of town that are being further developed? What are some of the signals that you've seen? Is it, you know, that are allowing, you know, buyers to feel comfortable moving into certain parts of town? Because of course there's been a big shift here. I know, Scott, do you want to speak to that?
I'd say some of the factors that make buyers feel comfortable is, like people mentioned, the South Side has been one of the most undeveloped areas here in Atlanta. Oftentimes you have buyers that would come to town and say, I want to be north of I-20. And now, just because of what's going on and people being moved out, all the places were kind of to echo what Adrian said, is going around the South Corridor, you know, people who typically, I do a lot of stuff in Clayton County and some of those southern markets, and I've seen a lot of investors that are on the north side investing those dollars on the south side just because that's where the demand is going, and that's where a lot of workforce housing is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. What kind of impact has COVID played on your business and the sales brokerage, and what new strategies or innovations came as a result of this?
I guess I'll take that one. For me, I've had deals get delayed. I've had them get restructured and just get canceled altogether. I'm seeing buyers are nervous because, you know, with the eviction moratorium, they're saying, hey, I may buy your property and I can't evict the tenants that you've put in there. So I've seen some deals where if I'm agreeing to pay pre-COVID prices, that some sellers agreeing to what we call a rent guarantee, that the property has to generate X number of dollars, say maybe over the next 6 months. And if there's a shortfall, there'll be money set aside to cover that. I guess technology has taken a place. I've done an appraisal virtually recently, virtual inspections. So it's just interesting how technology is going to come into place just so we can have the social distancing and less, you know, face-to-face interactions.
Hey, Scott, I got a question for you. How effective is that desktop appraisal versus actually going out to the property?
Oh, no, this is not a desktop appraisal. This is maybe you might have a Zoom call, if you will. Like I did a Freddie Mac appraisal this week, and instead of having 6 or 8 people come, they sent one representative. And they were just like on a big Zoom call and kind of waving their phone or computer around so they could kind of see that sort of thing. I don't think that you're going to see desktop appraising for multifamily anytime
Right.
soon.
That's why I was like, you know, I'm glad you cleared that up.
Okay.
So Will, I want to hear from you on the lending side, right? On the sales brokerage side, I think, you know, we've seen, a lot of deals falling apart, a lot of buyers reluctant to buy. And lending obviously plays a direct impact on transactions taking place. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster lately, but you want to give us a little bit of the play-by-play on what you've seen since March in the lending world and what the current outlook is?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, a lot has happened. The biggest thing, obviously, is it's no longer as easy a lending environment as it was previously. I mean, previously it's very easy to get 75%, 80% loan to value on a lot of different types of deals. Right at the beginning, I mean, rates dropped. So the 10-year treasury, I don't know, it's like 0.6 right now, where it was, it's 1.5 or so beginning of the year. LIBOR is, 0.16, which a lot of floating rate debt is based off. And then the Fed funds rate cut the rates to 0. So in order to increase the amount of lending, rates have dropped considerably to make debt cheaper. So, I mean, we're seeing the cheapest debt ever in U.S. history, which is pretty insane to be a part of that right now. It sounds all good, but unfortunately, the big hurdle that's been put in place by a lot of lenders, specifically Fannie and Freddie, is a level of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance reserves. So this came out, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after COVID really hit, like the day after, kind of mid-March or so. That puts a big hurdle, and there's a lot of fluctuations on the type of deal, the loan amount, to exactly how much principal and interest reserves are going to be needed. And if we want to get in the weeds of that, we can. But that's really the main thing, is rates drop considerably, so it's very cheap. However, it's much more difficult to get debt, specifically on Fannie and Freddie. A lot of community bank debt was so tied up with SBA loans and such that they couldn't even process or call back buyers on the lending side. So it made it difficult for community banks, and they were unwilling to take on new borrowers, just because community banks are very relationship driven. Hard money loans, pretty much, I think David mentioned it earlier, that CMBS loans and hard money loans were almost pulled off the market completely, that they're starting to make a slow comeback. But a lot of those kind of high risk debt was just taken off the board completely. In summary, it's just a more difficult lending environment due to the higher risk. But we are seeing good trends. So, rent has stayed pretty steady. There hasn't been a huge decrease in occupancy. Things seem to be okay and not quite as bad as people thought. And we have seen Fannie and Freddie start to show a willingness to pull back on the hurdles in terms of the principal and interest reserves, not requiring them for low leverage deals. So the signs are there that we're headed in the right direction, but it's still a little bit tough right now. But as more economic data comes out, I was optimistic to hear David Kahn say he's seeing some optimism, and as GDP and unemployment starts to look a little bit better, I'd imagine we'll be in a much better environment in the next 6 to 8 months.
And I know you and I are looking at a refinance right now. Do you want to just speak to the group as far as what the refinance situation is? Is it easy to take advantage of these low rates right now?
So yes and no. Freddie Mac is very difficult on cash out refinances right now. Basically what they're doing is they're making it a cash neutral loan. So let's say you have senior debt on the property and you're wanting to cash out, $500,000 or so. They're not going to allow you to pull out a lot of that equity. What they're going to do is say, okay, your senior debt, your cost of the loan, legal, prepayment penalties, origination fees, and things like that. And they'll basically give you a loan that will cover all of the costs, so the senior debt, prepayment, and all that. And then on top of that, the reserves that they're requiring. So you can kind of get a cash neutral refinance with Freddie, but it's not an easy process. I've gone through 2 loans that recently that it was not easy. It was a very difficult process. Fannie Mae is much more competitive on the refinances. They are going to pull back on the leverage. So, if you were able to get 75%, maybe closer to 70, 72%, but Fannie is much more competitive on the cash out refinances. So it's important to look at both.
Mm-hmm. It's almost forcing conservatism in your approach, right?
Yeah.
Lower leverage, but yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So you still can take advantage of the rates. You're just not going to get as much cash at your deal, more than likely, if you're able to pull through the refinance. Yeah, and for example, I don't spread too much of your details, but it works well for you because you're really just trying to take advantage of the terms that are very beneficial right now. So, very good rates. You can still get long-term fixed rate interest only deals. So if you're not super worried about the cash out portion and really just want to take advantage of the historical rates, now's a great time to refinance. Really just depends on what you're after. Right. 100%. Now, I know we have a lot of investors on the line. Really, there's 2 questions I want to ask to the folks in the sales brokerage side of things. Would you recommend getting started as a sales broker? Do you find the experience to be worthwhile to do a few years as a sales broker, or should you really just pick one lane and stick to it?
I'll take that. So I think, an investor, and I've seen a couple realtors on here as well. I think you have to you don't have to pick or choose one or another. I'm sure a lot of the realtors on here are on here to learn personal investments, but also to understand what an investor is looking for so they can grow their business. So with all that said, I think you have to think about what it is you really want to accomplish. And you don't want to position yourself in a competing position with your clients. So you can, it's great to be an investor and a broker, but there's some, ethical and legal things you have to worry about. And there's also, just the relationships with your clients you're going to want to be mindful about. So I would say you can do both, but you're going to have to be focused on a strategy that doesn't conflict with what you're trying to accomplish.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that.
Would you say what's the difference between a broker double dipping as far as them being a broker and also selling versus them rolling their commission into the deal for equity?
You said what's the difference?
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, that it just depends on who you're partnering with and who those buyers are. Because I mean, there are plenty of buyers out there that would be okay with that. I'm not going to take a commission. I want to use this commission for an equity position into the deal. But then when you start talking multifamily syndication, it can get a little complex because then it's like, okay, you're in a deal, you forfeited your commission to get in an equity position in the deal. And then it's time to sell your deal. So how do you, or you see an opportunity for a new acquisition? How do you, and you have this group of buyers in your database. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go for that deal because it's available, or do you tell your clients that that deal is available? So it just starts to become ethically tricky. It's like, if I was a client and my broker was also an investor and they're acquiring the same type of deals that I'm looking for, then you become competition. And I'm not sure if you're in it for my best interest.
Right. And in addition to that, right, because I've explored this whole path before. In addition to that, we have to keep in mind that a lot of these deals that are off market are non-exclusive agreements, right? These are broker relationships that have not signed a contract with them. So if you're a broker and you have an off-market deal and you know that I'm not just a buyer, but I'm also running my own brokerage, who's to say I'm not going to go poach the buyer, right? Because I also might know that same owner, right? So it really does muddy the waters. So I do agree that having one side or the other, but I also do believe that if you are willing to stick it out for 2 to 3 years in a sales brokerage, and if you have the right environment with the right training and the right mentors around you, it will help you incredibly cut down on the learning curve of the business. And it is a good way to get your started if you plan to transition into the investor side. So all great points and good things to bring up here. And the other question, which I think a lot of people are faced with, and you hit on it to some degree in the beginning of when we talked about partnering with experience. But if an investor is approaching you, an investor is calling you, say they have no experience, right? What can they do before making that phone call to better prepare themselves? And how should they facilitate that conversation, right? What are the things that they should be mentioning on that conversation to give you confidence and their ability to execute on transaction if they are new?
First, you need to get the education, attend events like this. Hopefully you guys do another one. I mean, the amount of information, I don't care if you're experienced or new, I've learned a ton. I'm sure there's experienced investors on this call that have learned a ton. So I think it starts with getting that education first. And then when you reach out to a broker, someone like Scott or Adrian or myself, and you're looking for that first multifamily deal, you don't sound like a new person that has no idea how to put together a multifamily deal. And I'd like to think I'm one of the nicer brokers, but there's a lot that won't even take your call if you don't know what you're talking about. So, and then you can burn your bridges because I know who Adrian is, I know who Scott is. The world is small, so you don't want to burn any bridges and be known as the person that has no idea what they're doing, or it'll hurt your deal flow.
So Whitney, I'm gonna piggyback off that because I agree with what you're saying about burning bridges, right? So let me see.
Hold on. David, I think you're sharing your screen.
Dave, I think you're sharing your screen. DG.
Let me,
I give him a call. I'm gonna mute myself.
okay.
If I could just add real quick to
Go ahead.
what Whitney said, for two reasons. All right. So one, I think, and this goes back to the other question as well, would have been an agent versus an investor and so on and so forth. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of these potential prospects have is they automatically assume that they're a client. You are not a client until you have an agreement with that client, whether that's exclusive or non-exclusive. So they expect a client's service when they're not really able or, willing to give you a customer's, perspective, if you will. So they essentially, they want to be treated like a client and get the world given to them, not knowing or not understanding or comprehending that. Again, like in my database alone, I have over 80,000 investors, right? So when you approach someone who actually have assets to sell you, a Scott, Whitney, myself, whomever, you want to make sure that you approach them properly, and that you respect their time and you understand that you're not, even if you are a newbie, I like transparency. I work with new investors all the time, but just let me know so I can even help coach you how to do it the right way. I might give you some advice that you had no idea about, and now you can go successfully put that transaction together. So I think one of the biggest things is understanding if you are a client, you'll get client service. So if you dedicate yourself exclusively to a Scott, for example, or myself or Whitney, then you're going to get a type of service that everybody isn't going to get. That's one of 1,000 inquiries that we may receive that week on one particular asset. So I want to say that I think that's extremely important from my personal experience.
Definitely.
I definitely want to echo both of those sentiments. I've actually worked with new investors, but it's very helpful, as mentioned in the past, if you're just honest. I've had people tell me, this is my first deal. They may not understand all the language. And because when you call a broker, we're qualifying you. You may not even know it because we're asking you questions, and based on how you answer these questions determines, if we're going to invest our time, if you're serious, because it's all about the surety of closing. So I just think just being honest and upfront, and, I've been able to direct people to certain lenders and say, hey, talk to this specific lender. If they can, pre-qualify you, if you will. I can find a property for you, but, educate yourself and just be straight up is what I tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a couple of things I would echo on that front. Whenever I'm working with someone that's newer and they're asking, how do you usually have those conversations? I usually will echo the first thing is that don't just read off the criteria that you read out of the textbook that you were given, right? Because I think that you guys, you can pick that up pretty quickly when they go in and they need an 8 cap or a 7 cap with 10% cash on cash and whatnot, right? So I think the first mistake is don't just read off like a scripted out criteria of exactly what you need. Bullet by bullet. I think as investors become more sophisticated, you really want to you really want to get deal flow more than anything, right? You want to first build the trust with brokers, being honest, like you said, being transparent. I would say first, going out there and finding the capital, right? And having capital partners or finding someone with more experience that can help you close the transaction if that so you have more of a story to tell. But then beyond that, it's just, it's not being realizing that when you're new, you're not going to get this like exclusive treatment where you're going to get sent every off-market deal and you're going to send the best of the best. You really have to kind of earn your stripes, and you have to earn your stripes by being diligent. And a lot of times the way you get to the off-market deals is by being diligent on the on-market deals, right? If you know how to underwrite deals and respond to the deals that you're getting sent that are hitting the market or that are on market, then over time, you're going to build that kind of relationship through just showing that you're actually putting a lot of thought and attention behind the deals that are coming across your desk and responding quickly so that you build that trust to enter into the off-market deals. Would you second that, or anything in addition you'd add towards that?
I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, I agree. And if you're newer and you're approaching a broker you've never talked to, and you're legitimate, it might be good to just even consider being, delivering proof of funds. I know in the investor world, that's like, if they ask you for a proof of funds, that's insulting, but, that might help a lot. It actually will help a lot, move that needle forward and them give you some of those deals, or us give you some of those deals that might be off market, or, or something that you cannot, readily get, just out there looking yourself.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about with syndication? What are your thoughts on that when you see someone earlier on in their career and they're saying they're going to syndicate the deal or raise a bunch of investor capital? Does that set off a flag, or what are the things that you can see to be more okay with that?
If they have it structured properly and they have a solid team with them and they're not doing it by themselves, then it's something I would take seriously. But if it's just a initial conversation with a rookie and they have no clue what they're talking about and they want to potentially do a syndication and they're learning on YouTube how to do such, then obviously that's a different conversation. But I think that regardless of how they accumulate the capital, as long as they have the capital, it really doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So Scott, starting with you, I want to hear, what are you currently seeing from the clients that you're working with as far as the potential sellers, right? What's the overall sentiment that you're getting from the buyers and the sellers?
Well, from the buyer side, the buyers have this idea that because of COVID, a 15 to 20% discount is in order. And from the seller perspective, they're saying, I remember what my property was worth, 8 weeks ago. And so they're not willing to take that discount. So a lot of sellers are having this, let's just wait and see. I had a bunch of sellers that wanted to go to market, say May, June, and now they're saying, let's go back to maybe July, August, and just push things back. So hopefully things will get more in line. But I think once the eviction moratorium has been lifted, that would help lenders feel a little bit more comfortable. And I think it's going to help with some of the pricing that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a question. I wanted to finish my question to any one of the brokers can answer this. When it comes to burning your name, as Whitney was saying, what do you all think about, because I know a lot of people tell, newbies to call outside of their market so they don't burn their name in the market that they want to be in. What do you all think about that? Because at some point you're going to have to get practical experience on the phone with a broker. So you don't want to burn your name in your, market. So so if I'm interested in Atlanta, what do you think about calling Birmingham not to waste someone's time, but to kind of get some actually practical experience? So you saying it's going to waste somebody's time, Adrian?
Personally, I think it's a waste of time. I think that going back to Whitney Echo, like you want to learn what you're doing. You can't make, if you want to be a passive investor and get some capital and then get some returns passively, that's one thing. But you have to know what you're doing if you want to be a successful real estate investor. You can't just think because you watch Grant Cardone that you can come in the game and start making a killing. It doesn't work that way. So I think that I wouldn't encourage anyone to waste anyone's time. I'm a big believer in always adding value. I tell my agents this all the time. And it's the same thing with a potential client. If you want to showcase your value, you want to showcase to a broker, I'm getting ready to help you get another check, another commission check. So I'm not here to waste your time. So I think that I personally would not encourage that. I would rather encourage, getting a book and reading that, or investing in yourself in some sort of seminar that works, or that you had some good recommendations on. But I definitely wouldn't just call a random market just for the sake of practicing. You can practice in a mirror with a script.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that. I mean, everybody's time is valuable, right? And I think more importantly for someone that's new is creating your team and having that support system in addition to the education. Because at the end of the day, even if you get all the education in the world, you still haven't done a deal. And no matter if it's a lender, a broker, it doesn't really, property management company, you're still going to be kind of a cautionary investor because you've never done a deal. There's no proven track record. So it's just going to be hard. It's going to be a grit, just like anything that you try. This is commercial real estate, not just, you're not just buying a single family home. It's a lot of, the financing is a little bit more complex. And so it takes a different level of skill. And I think if you can get the right team together, one of these people on this call, or, go to an event or seminar, and then start networking. Hopefully one day we get back to, seeing each other face to face. But I mean, there's plenty of Zoom calls that happen in all the different types of firms. I would also suggest, even with the bigger firms like a Bull Realty or a Marcus & Millichap, go ahead and sign up on their website to start receiving some of those deals, so you can start getting an idea of what product looks like, what prices look like. And that can just be some passive things you can do before you even get on the phone and call a broker.
Something else you could do too is invite a broker out to lunch, somebody that you see in the marketplace, but somebody that may not be CBRE or JLL if you're not looking to acquire, 200 plus unit assets, and get to know them and try to genuinely build a relationship with them and see if they, you can offer them something, but they can offer you some advice. And if you can say, hey, I would love to have you be my guy where I run these deals through, you can help me analyze them and you'll be my go-to agent, and you start building genuine, legitimate relationships as opposed to just going to every broker with your hand out and expecting them to dump all the goods on you when they don't even know you.
And just to echo on both of their sentiments, know the market. So it's hard if you're a new investor, focus on one market. You can't know everything about 5 or 6 different markets, because I get a call at least once a month from somebody saying, I need an 8 to 10 cap in Buckhead. And I keep trying to tell, it doesn't exist.
Right.
And I remember one day I just happened to be in a playful mood. And I asked this person, well, how long does it take you to close? And they're like, 90 days and blah, blah, blah. I said, if I had a true 10 cap in Buckhead, I could get an offer in 15 minutes and I could tell the person that they have to close in 14 days and they'd make it happen. But I'm just saying, for all new investors, just focus on something small. Know whatever market that you want to be in and just make it that you can just know everything about all the properties that have been on the market. Look on the websites like people have said, and just educate yourself. Start small and then you can eventually, get to larger regions.
So a lot of the same common themes going back to on this is just laying the foundation, right? Before you go out there and you start calling up all the brokers and spending time with them, right? Lay the foundation, get your money in place, get your knowledge in place, know your market, right? Before you make those calls. Now, what would be helpful is understanding which markets. Right now, I think a lot of the people on these calls are probably B and C class investors, and they probably need a decent yield comparative to buying in the middle of Buckhead, a stabilized asset, we'll say, right? Like typically probably looking for a little bit higher cap rate, I'd say, or maybe something that's got some significant upside. So I think everyone on the call is very familiar with the overall model, right, of going in and finding some way to get some decent yield with the ability to drive value. Where would you be looking right now if you're an investor and looking at the Atlanta market? What pockets of the market would you recommend taking a look at?
I like secondary and tertiary markets personally, unless you can find a really good, smaller sub 20 unit in Midtown or Buckhead for a decent price and you're not overpaying for it on the entry. But I personally like a lot of the secondary and tertiary markets surrounding Atlanta. I think that you have to be careful though, because again, I wouldn't venture out to like a Macon.
Right.
But again, I would definitely go just outside where you could find a primary location and then find some of those areas that are expanding due to whatever's happening at that core primary location, like a Mableton, like a Douglasville, like a Riverdale, like a Griffin. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yep.
I third that as well. And also you may be able to find some developments or new businesses. For instance, say Georgia State University. They've pretty much have dominated all of downtown, and they bought the old Brave Stadium, which is Turner Field, which abuts Summerhill and Grant Park and Mechanicsville and Peoplestown. And there's a lot of older, smaller multifamily properties in those neighborhoods where you could buy a property, fix it up. The development's already coming close by that you can see, and then you can benefit from that wave.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. I think that's great. Now, Will, for you, as a loan broker, well, first off, maybe if you want to just speak to the value in having a loan broker in terms of versus say just there's really 2 ways to go about it, right? You can go direct lender, right? You can go to what they call dust lenders, right? And connect with them directly and kind of shop around on yourself. And there's also going with the loan broker and having a loan broker on your team. If you want to speak to maybe both sides of the coin and share with us, what the value is for someone and building that relationship early on with the loan broker and how that can also help them ultimately enhance their credibility and preparedness to close.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it really boils down to just having more options. So for example, if you have a good debt guy, say they work at one of the desk lenders, let's say, Arbor, just to make it simple. If you've got a good guy who you can trust him, and that they've executed before for you in the past, stick with that person. That's a very valuable relationship. In the lending space, there's a lot of, it's a very salesy industry. So if you have a guy or girl that you trust, stick with them and build that relationship. The benefit of the broker is that a lot of times each DUS lender or Optigo lender, which is for Freddie Mac, each one of them is a little bit better at one asset class or one lending type than the other. So, whether it's student housing, or whether it's conventional multifamily, or whether it's mobile home parks, or whether it's smaller properties, each one of them has one that they, kind of started out with and have done more deals in that area. So they have better relationships with Freddie Mac conventional or Freddie Mac SBL. So the broker knows specifically which lenders and which relationships you can leverage for a specific asset class. So again, if you're experienced and you have a specific relationship that you like working with, hold on to that, because it's very difficult to find a good guy in the lending space. I mean, I just know that from firsthand experience. So hold on to that, and then you can look at a loan brokerage and see what else is out there. If anything, you can get multiple quotes and say, okay, the guy that I know is going to perform is giving me the same term sheet as the loan broker. So I know what I'm getting is, you can at least stress test the quotes that you're giving and making sure you're getting the best option. So that's kind of for experience. For a beginner, you need some level of someone that works for you. So if you're a beginner and you go to a lender, they're going to sell you what they're good at. If you're starting out, a broker can say, okay, what are you trying to do? Let's go to this guy because he's good at that. And we can not only go to this guy, but we can go to this guy or girl, sorry, and see the differences. And some might be more salesy, some might be better at certain things. So it's really just getting more options on the brokerage side, because it's very easy to lie in the lending space without lying. So for example, you can go to a lender and say, is it possible to get 80% loan to value on this? All of them are going to say yes, because it is possible, but the likelihood of that actually happening, you never know. So it's very hard on the front end to know who's able to produce terms that are realistic. And so that's the benefit of the broker, is that you can get multiple quotes, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see it as it's especially when you're new, having that filter helps tremendously, right? Because like you said, you don't really know who to trust. Everyone's going to say they're the best of the best, and you need someone that's been there and been through enough transactions to be able to help guide you towards a place that you can trust in, right? And also, if you're in a position where you're trying to, like Whitney mentioned, if you go out there and you're serious, you get a PFS. You get, the broker to back you up, saying that you're qualified for a loan up to a certain amount based on your financials, right? These are the kind of things that you can have in place to make sure that you're showing you're serious, you're showing you're not here to play games and mess around, right? And then backing that with obviously the technical knowledge of being able to provide thorough feedback on deals and showing that you've done your diligence in the front end. So those would be that's really a checklist, right? To make sure you're set up for success. On.
And 2 quick points just to make sure that to say, like, for example, I'm looking at a small mobile home park deal. It's $945,000, and generally agency don't like to go less than $1 million. The borrower came to me, we shopped it around to 5 lenders. 4 of them said no, 1 said yes. So if that guy would have gone directly to a lender, gotten a no, he may have given up. So it's kind of just having multiple quotes. And then also a broker can be the filter of how you prepare your documents to present to a lender, because we're not making the final decision. So we can look at your PFS, your T12, all the storyline, and we can help you put a package together that can be then presented to a lender, which gives you the highest likelihood of receiving the optimal terms.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Scott, I want to hear from you at Bull Realty. What are you seeing in terms of buyer demand? Are buyers looking for more B class now? Or buyers seeing that as more of a safe place? Or are they still just as hungry for workforce housing? Is there any changes in terms of what the buyers reaching out to you are looking for?
I wouldn't say there's just any more changes. I mean, there's definitely people looking for a workforce housing as well as B class. I would say since COVID, I've been getting more and more calls. I guess there's just so much dry powder sitting on the sidelines, and some buyers feel that there's blood in the streets, but not any difference. Just more demand for both.
Okay, awesome. What other best tips, best practices does anyone want to share with the group?
I would say have your documents in order. Personal financial statement, accounting, T12, just having your ducks in a row, having the documents prepared. And that way your first call with either a property broker or a loan broker, you can provide documentation that gives you some credibility.
I would say understand that you need to build a team and have a solid team, that, especially if you're a newbie, but have a solid team as your foundation.
And I guess just to add to that, when you are submitting an offer, you want to submit a bio on the team so that a broker as well as a seller will know who they're dealing with and what's the likelihood of closing. Because, all these buyers have, multiple offers on it. And if you want your offer to be selected, then the more information that you can provide about yourself and your team, increases, your ability to close.
Absolutely, especially a schedule of assets owned. So if you have a team that own other assets, that is extremely helpful when we're selecting who we're going to engage in a negotiation with when it comes to potentially going under contract.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a great point. And a good reminder for even those with a lot of experience, right? You can get lazy and just start submitting LOIs, but submitting that letter, having that bio prepped is always going to help your case, right? It could be that slight edge that gives you the difference. And when the broker sends over to the seller and they see a little bit about you and your team, that can give them the confidence they need to point in your direction. So. Anything from the audience? Anyone want to jump in? Any questions we have from the audience coming in? And Whitney, I wanted to talk to you too about on the property management side, right? You're a broker, you're an investor, you're doing the property management, you've been growing and scaling that business. Property management, again, is another field that has a tremendous amount of a pulse on the market, better than most will, right? It's really like the bloodline that we have from our investments is the management team. So when we think about property management, I want to hear from you. Number one, has it been very difficult to be in the property management business in these last few months?
Yeah. So like you said, the property management is like the foundation of all this. I mean, those guys on site, asset management team is just, if you're going to get a value, if you're going to get, you're going to execute on your business plan, you got to go through the management team. So, we are actually on a leadership call with some of our top multifamily property management companies in Atlanta, from Cortland to First Communities to Perennial. And the consensus has been on that call is it's just a lot of legal ramifications that people are trying to avoid. Initially, when COVID-19 first happened back in March and we were all locked down, we were all trying to figure out, what was the best way to maximize collections and different payment plan strategies. And those larger companies, they all live in that A asset space. They have been able to collect well. But when you hear, about collections, they're also considering partial payments, right? So I think the real focus of a buyer or a seller is really what are the delinquencies looking like? And the reality is right now, what's making it hard in the debt markets and more risky in the multifamily is just that there hasn't been a consistency, with the delinquencies. I mean, the delinquencies are all over the place. They're very high right now. So when you're buying a property and you hear, hey, this property is 85, 90% collecting, what does that really actually mean? And is that, is that 90%, 85% of 100% collections, or, half the tenants paying partial payments and on payment plans? So really it's just been a mix of just trying to stay legally compliant while also maximizing collections for the owners.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, I always want to give the advice, and not to keep things overly elementary, but I think this is super valuable advice because I know we have a broad audience listening to us. But remember that your property management is, in a large way, one of your biggest partners in this. When you're underwriting deals, the way that you know how your expenses are going to flow through the property is because you have a property management team that you're in touch with, right? And if you have a good one, they'll oftentimes go walk the properties with you, tour the properties with you, view your underwriting, and help give you the verification that you need to be confident in placing your offer, so you know that your repairs and maintenance are in line, or the way you're planning on, handling your payroll for that property is in alignment, right? So that it's not a big surprise when you go and put your offer in and you get your offer accepted and then find out that you need extra staff on the property than you initially anticipated, right? So make sure that you're having those discussions and pre-vetting a quality property manager ahead of time. So contact Whitney or any property managers in the area and start to get to know them, build that relationship ahead of time, and use them as someone to lean on as you're placing your offers and working on how you're running your expenses on each property, or even projecting your rental increases, right? They're going to get a good understanding on what rents are possible in different parts, and they might give you a reality check if your projections are out of line.
100% agree. I'd also, just before, I know we have to go soon, but on the property management side, I would also be mindful of the type of property management company you have and what they focus in. It's nice to get some of the bigger ones, but you definitely want to be careful. If you're a BC investor, you don't want an A asset manager. So, there's different management companies, and, depending on your size of your portfolio, you might be looking at, this might be your first deal, and then you go, approach a larger company, and they just might not see your deal as something of a priority. And so you might have anyone as your on-site management team. So just be careful. I know it always looks good to go with, those, what and the big names, but sometimes it's going to be to your advantage to do your research and see, where you can really get the value for your property.
I agree 100% with that. In my firm, we don't do any property management. All of our partners are third-party vendors. It is extremely important to select the proper property management when you're looking at these tertiary markets. The deal can look incredible, but you have to factor in if you can actually get quality management in that location. So that's something to consider.
100%.
Call me, Adrian.
For sure.
All right. Well,
sorry I'm late, guys. I was having trouble getting Zoom to work. Forgive me. Omar, good to see your face, brother. And who else we got on that?
Hey,
Chris?
how's it going, Rod?
Good. Good to see you guys.
Hey, I just wanted to say, Adrian, man, your setup is really sweet. I was waiting for everybody to get done. So I was going to ask you, where'd you get all of that stuff? Because that looks pretty cool.
Appreciate it.
Well, guys, we're just wrapping up the broker panel here. So I want to give you guys one final question here. Just who should be reaching out to you? So Scott, what size deals are you currently working at with Bull Realty? Who should be connecting with you? How can people get added to the Bull Realty list?
Sorry about that. I'm currently working on deals that are probably, I would say 50 to 150 units. Our website is bullrealty.com. My personal email is just my last name, Spalding, SPALDING @bullrealty.com. I definitely want to thank, Jen, Dylan, Rashad for putting this on together. This was awesome. Happy birthday, Whitney. And Adrian, it was nice connecting with you as well. And so I look forward to continuing meeting everyone and hopefully doing some business soon with everyone.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Scott.
Thanks for speaking, Scott.
Whitney, how about for you? How can people get in touch with you if they want to look at deals with you or work with you on the property management side?
Yeah, so Intuitive Management Partners back there. You can Google it and find it. But my email is whitney@intuitivemp.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Feel free to look at the website, send us a message, and we can help you, underwrite some deals and hopefully work on a deal together from acquisition to close.
All right. Awesome. And happy birthday again. And then Adrian, how about for you?
You can go to levelfirm.com. My email address is Adrian, ADRIAN @levelfirm.com. All my social media is Adrian.Provost, Instagram, Facebook.
All right. Excellent. Well, again, appreciate everyone jumping on. And Will, how about for you? If someone wants to work with you on the lending side, how can they get in contact?
Sure. So my email is will@randcre.com. I'll actually put it in the commentary here. And then you can check us out at randcapllc.com. We're releasing an article in the next couple of weeks that it specializes in when is the best time to refinance multifamily. So a lot of people don't really quite understand the seasoning and the intricacies that go into the timing for refinancing. So we'll post that at randcapllc.com here in the next couple of weeks. And then I've got a bar crawl. I have to go here for a company bar crawl. So I'm going to miss out on the operating panel. So
wow, that's a tough life, Will.
I know, but I was really looking forward to it. So Chris, Omar, Bill, and Rod, I hope to see the recording here soon. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone on the broker panel. Great job. Awesome job. And yeah, everyone that's tuning in, be sure to reach out to this group because I'm sure they're all going to be able to add a ton of value to you. We have some of our operators lining up here. If you don't mind, we just want to take just a quick 2-minute intermission. Just want to give everyone a chance, of course, to just grab, fill up some water, grab any food. I know we have an hour and a half set aside for our operator panel because we have a incredible lineup. So I'm super excited for that. Stay tuned here and we will get things rolling in just 1 minute here.